Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. I've got this big smile on my face. It is no surprise as to why. Woke up this morning knowing that the 47th president of the United States is Donald J. Trump. Truthfully, for me, it's kind of like an overwhelming feeling of emotion just because of the work, personally, that I put in. Traveling across the nation, essentially to almost all 50 states at this point, spreading the message of what's happening, what's at stake, highlighting the contrast between the two parties, certainly in terms of presidential candidates, but across the board, local level, state level, federal level. So this feels like 2.5 years, again, personally, of hard work that has paid off. So very, very exciting day. On the issue of men and women's sports in particular, the contrast between the two could not be more stark. We've got one ticket who has vowed to use all of his presidential and executive powers to prevent men from competing in women's sports. And we've got another ticket who doesn't even know what a woman is, who believes that menstrual products belong in boys' bathrooms, who believe that men can become pregnant. And I am so excited to say that the former has won this election in truly a blowout fashion, winning the popular vote, winning the Electoral College. We saw huge wins in the Senate, Republicans gaining control. Hopefully we will hold off in the House too and maintain control there. It couldn't have gone better. This was the red wave that I believe we were expecting in 2022, but didn't necessarily get. We got it here in the year of 2024. Last night, I was able to do some live coverage for Fox and for OutKick downtown Nashville. The crowd was electric in Kid Rock's bar. What a fun place to be. Every time, there were big TV screens. Every time Fox News would display a state that has been confirmed in support and in favor of President Trump, the room just went wild. So it was great to be there. You know who else was there? It was Pete Hegseth. He did a phenomenal job last night. He does a phenomenal job all the time. He is the Fox and Friends weekend host. He is also a born and raised Tennessean. So he is going to be on with us today discussing all things election, what this means for the American people, what is next to do. Just very grateful for him and for his voice, all that he's done for the American people in terms of coverage, in terms of getting the word out there. And now we get to reap those benefits. And so check out the episode here with Fox and Friends weekend host, Pete Hegseth. Pete, thank you for joining the Gains for Girls podcast. We got to spend last night together, a little bit of the night, at Kid Rock's bar in downtown Nashville.
Yes.
It was incredible. I bet you are exhausted right now. But we are officially unburdened by what has been. I'm thrilled by this. I was kind of, expecting this. I wasn't expecting to see the results last night. So overall thoughts, how do you feel?
Oh my goodness. It feels, yes, we are very much unburdened. Thank you so much for coming out as part of the coverage. And you know what? Talking to you this morning reminds me what a role you played. What a role those that stood up for common sense with courage and pointed out the absolute lunacy of the base of the Democrat Party that you saw overwhelmingly men, women too, no doubt, but men across all demographics as the biggest delta coming out and saying, no more of this. And then brave, courageous, strong, intelligent women saying, no more of this. We don't need, men are men, women are women. And how about we just put our own citizens first? And how about we make sure we have good paying jobs? So ultimately it was just a rejection of lunacy. And so, listen, I feel great. Do I think the election of Donald Trump is going to change, everything about the trajectory of our country? No. But he just bought us time and gave us a fighting chance. We're going to get sanity back in the White House. And it's been listen, I'm a little late to this podcast. I know this is, your viewers may not necessarily know that. because I've been stuck in a room with my wife, flipping through the channels, drinking liberal tears, watching commentators on other networks try to explain away what happened. And there's going to be a lot of candidate blaming, Harris blaming, Walz blaming, Biden blaming, he let her in too late. The reality is this was an embrace of Trump. And yes, it was a rejection of left-wing lunacy, but it was an embrace of a guy who spent half the campaign in a courtroom, Riley. He spent half the campaign in a courtroom, not able to campaign the way conventional candidates would. And now he's got that shot. And so it was not just a big middle finger, it was a big embrace of a worldview that the elites told us was out of touch. It turns out average people just want like prosperity and security and safety for their family, and men not in women's bathrooms. And that was the coalition that came together last night.
Yeah, which all used to be pretty foundational things when you think about it. Something both sides could at least agree on, right? We all thought patriotism was a good thing. We all wanted affordable living, lower taxes, safe streets, low crime, world peace, free speech. But now it seems like those aren't necessarily things, maybe in how they campaigned, but in terms of their voting record, it seems like these aren't things that both sides agree upon anymore. But if there is a man to unite us to this great nation again, of course, I believe it's Donald Trump. Yes. Yeah, you mentioned these liberal tears. I have never in my life wanted to watch The View, but I think it's going to be recording in my household. I can't wait to watch The View, watch the meltdown of these women on there. And yeah, I think it's super cool. The rejection of absurdity and these progressive policies, destructive policies, really, but the embrace of Trump. But even more than that, because this last night was a blowout on all fronts, of course, in terms of the Electoral College, but also the popular vote. Also, what we saw in terms of taking control of the U.S. Senate, hopefully keeping control of the House. I mean, it just debunks this whole mean orange man narrative. So what do you think changed since 2022, where I believe Republicans expected to see this big red wave that we didn't see then, but we saw last night?
Well, I think Trump on the ballot has always mattered. I mean, look at what happened in 2016. Look at what happened in 2020. He, as he often points out, he got a lot more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. When Trump's running and he's a part of the choice, yes, it does galvanize the other side. But I was in a diner in Wisconsin yesterday morning, meeting another young voter who said, I didn't even vote in 16 or 20, but I would walk over glass to vote for Trump in 24. And which is why I think maybe a warning sign or a reminder for the Republican Party is Donald Trump won this election. It's not necessarily the Republican Party that won this election. And there are plenty of people that don't want to embrace what Trump has done to remind the Republican Party about who it should represent, which is why, these next 2 years are particularly important. But the postmortem on the Republican side going forward, it will be equally important for the future of the country, because, Bush won 45% of the Hispanic vote in 2004. And then it vanished away when we became the country club, Chamber of Commerce party yet again. And Hispanics said, well, you don't really represent us. And then along came the guy who said, I'm going to build a wall and mass deportations. And he won, the largest percentage of Hispanics in the country. The other reminder is, Riley, is last night, is that we are a center-right country. If you look at how Kamala Harris actually campaigned, it was through hiding her radical views. She didn't get away with it, but they didn't want to talk about the trans issues. They wanted to pretend like they were hawks on the border. They wanted to pretend like they were going to cut taxes. And they talked about prices and costs and things like that. But on almost every single controversial issue, it was either that's not really what I believe or no comment, because they know deep down in America doesn't stand for the sort of lunatic Marxist views that they've represented. So it was an affirmation that when you point these things out, I mean, the ad the Trump campaign ran the most, and this, is the one where Trump says, I'm for you and they're for they, them. And that isn't just a condemnation of trans people. That's what you hear all over the air this morning. It's a recognition that we've lost our way. We've lost our priorities. It's supposed to be Americans and citizens first. Most people want to raise their young boy or young girl just as they are. And the government should stay out of the way and certainly not mandate what parents have to are required to say, or certainly not allow schools to do it under their nose. So it's a reminder we're a center-right country. Every single state reminded them of that. Democrats are going to have to go back to the drawing board about what they really represent, who they really represent. I mean, and the big question for me here is, what are they going to throw out there? Because they're going to not stop coming after Trump. What will be the new, Russia Gate of 2024? Be on the lookout. That's coming soon. But it's a beautiful thing to see. And Donald Trump and his folks should celebrate. There's an amazing coalition. And last thing, last night doesn't happen without Elon Musk either, with what he unleashed on Twitter and the opportunity for actual free speech. Without that, who knows what we would not have seen? Who knows what conversations would have been suppressed and how unable we'd have been able to, because that's probably the biggest takeaway here, is that this is the misinformation election because we actually had free speech. But they can say all they want. I'll be watching The View just like you. It's appointment viewing today, and it's going to be amazing. Agreed.
And yeah, Elon Musk, gosh, I mean, he's the greatest patriot. I truly believe that to me, in my eyes. He's someone who has, I think, saved free speech, really. If it weren't for him, that's where I get all my news, truthfully, is from X. It's where it comes the fastest. It's what I have found to be most reliable in terms of how quick it's being put out. He's an African-American, technically, who cares more about our freedoms as Americans than a lot of Americans do. And you mentioned Kamala Harris and hiding, really, running from her voting record in the most undemocratic way, becoming the presidential candidate. It's
in some way you almost feel bad for her. I don't at all, but it's like she was gifted this position. Joe Biden, basically gave the middle finger to everybody that pushed him out. Nancy Pelosi and Obama gifted this position and told, you'll win. Follow the rules, follow what we're telling you, and you'll win. And she didn't. So we'll see.
Biden discontinued his candidacy, I mean, there were days, I forget how many days, like over a week, where the American people were wondering if he was still alive. He just announced over X, hey, I'm not running anymore, and that was it. And so I'll be curious to see how she handles this scenario. And you mentioned Elon Musk. Of course, last night's a big win. But thinking of Elon Musk and his role in the department and the administration, of course, there's more work to be done. We need to drain the swamp. And so I couldn't be more excited, of course, for a Trump presidency, but almost more excited for a new established Department of Government efficiency. I think this is a wonderful way to keep dollars in our pockets as tax-paying Americans.
It's going to be the toughest job in government, Riley. I mean, by the way, give the toughest job to the guy who has a track record of doing it, to the guy who said, I'm going to change Twitter. Oh, what does it take to change Twitter? First of all, buying it at a really high price and then firing 90% of the employees. If you want to change the culture, you got to... Now, firing employees at Twitter is a lot different at firing employees at the Department of Interior or the Department of Education. And so he's up for the battle of his life. Nobody better to be in that position to figure out how to do it. And I hope they go headlong into it. There's no reason to hedge their bets at all. It will be amazing to see. I wonder if I'm guessing it'll probably be in Mar-a-Lago where they roll out who he's picking and because it was at Trump Tower in 2016 when everybody was watching the elevators and who's being picked. That'll probably be Mar-a-Lago this time. I do want to give you, and your viewers already know this, but you deserve a lot of credit. You deserve a lot of credit for having the courage to speak up on an issue that was seen as not a marginal issue, but hey, why are we making hay of this? Oh, that sounds radical. That doesn't sound inclusive. This is a niche issue. And because of you, first and foremost, and then a lot of other courageous folks standing up and saying, you know what, men are men and women are women, and this is just flat out wrong. You created the space for a real conversation that became one of the top 3 or 4 issues that decided where this election went. And for someone of your age who is not planning to be doing this at all, it's a real testament. There are very few people that get to sit at the crux or a cross section of politics and issues and show that kind of courage because of your faith and your background. I commend you. You made a difference. A lot of people can't say that.
Well, that's very kind. It's wild to me that it requires bravery to say something so simple, so entry level, nothing wise, nothing profound. It's literally just that men and women are different. But we do live in this time, and it speaks to the moral decay, the decline our nation has seen, that it is considered brave to say those things. And so I've gotten messages all morning, all night last night from moms mostly who say, look, I'm a lifelong liberal. You open my eyes. I have a daughter. She plays sports. I can't imagine. So to understand in some capacity that there was impact that was had is pretty special. And again, seeing it play out in these Senate races. You had idiots like Bob Casey or Colin Allred in Texas who have the voting record proving that this was something that they pushed for, they advocated for, men and women's sports. Yet when it's time, they're on a debate stage, Colin Allred of Texas is up there saying, look, I'm a Christian, I'm a father, I would never support these ridiculous ideas. Really, because you voted in favor four times. So whatever, calling out the hypocrisy, I believe is key. And so again, Pete, just grateful for you. It's been super cool to see everything that you all have done for this election, for the American people. Last question for you. I think I was listening last night, of course, to Fox. It was on my TV. It's on my TV in my house 24 hours a day. And I'm listening last night, and it was something that struck me where, they're on the panel and he says, we've spent this election cycle, there's been $16 billion that have been spent on advertisements and media. We're in this new era now where podcasts, it's a way of free advertising. So is that something you see continuing on in the years to come?
No doubt, Riley. Forums like yours, listen, there'll still be utility and power to a place like the Fox News channel. They'll always it's sports and news. Sports and news will always have an appetite for quality, live, well-produced programming. They just will, because people want it in real time. I want it, you want it. We'll get older, we'll have different ways of consuming it, no doubt. But you could point to podcasts as it could be the place that made the difference for Trump. You've spent time with him. I've spent time with him. And we are very privileged to have that opportunity. Most people have not, right? Or they've seen him only as characterized by the lunatics in the media. And to have an opportunity for him to go on long-form podcasts like Joe Rogan, or like he did with multiple other comedians, and they got to see the side of Trump that we get to see, which is he's a real guy. He's got a real sense of humor. He's got a heart for his family. He truly cares for the country. He'll say things in a way that you and I understand, but the media takes literally as if it's some crazy. The Atlantic wrote an article this morning saying democracy is not over. They don't even believe what they're saying. They told us democracy was over. No, it's not over. No, we're just kidding. You can cut through ABC, NBC, CBS, Washington Post, New York, CNN, New York Times, CNN, and MSNBC with a podcast that reaches 25, 30 million people, or in your case, women who need to see a side or understand a side of Trump or the Republican Party or an issue on life or on gender that will never be fairly characterized. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. But again, it kind of goes back to Musk. Like, if Musk doesn't create a check on all the other social media sites, what platforms are willing to deplatform those who go against the acceptable narrative? But with X there, now there's a place where it can always be heard, which puts the other platforms on notice as well. So I that'll be part of what's written about this too, is that podcasts introduced campaigns, voters, to the other side of candidates. Trump did it, and the only podcast that Kamala Harris could do or did do was a highly choreographed sex podcast that is like wildly inappropriate, but was the only one she was willing to go on, because she can't actually do long form in an authentic way, which is staggering. Kamala Harris is not qualified to run a city council race where we're from. It's offensive to city councilmen to compare her, because she was unqualified from the beginning. They knew it, and Trump introduced himself in a meaningful way through these types of platforms, and it paid off. Agreed.
And the free market, I just believe, will always prevail. If people want podcasts, the world will adjust. If people want
Absolutely.
their news on X, other media outlets, other social media forums will adjust as well. And so, Pete, thank you. It was great to see you.
Thank you.
Your beautiful wife, your many children who were running around last night. But that's what it's about, Honestly, it made me excited to see them. It's a reminder, not necessarily what we're fighting for, but who we're fighting for. So appreciate you and everything that you do for this nation, and we will continue watching you.
There we go. Likewise, Riley, you're the best. Come join us at Fox and Friends anytime. You know that.
Always. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Gains for Girls podcast. As always, you can check us out at OutKick.com, see all things Gains for Girls. Share this episode with your friends, with family, with your favorite liberal. But really, honestly, I want to sign off today by saying that this win, it's not just a win for conservatives, people like me, people who share my same viewpoints. This win is a win for everyone. It's a win for all Americans, at least Americans who want affordable living, Americans who want safe streets and lower crime and free speech and world peace and America First policies. While the two parties, of course, have always had their differences, those were things not too long ago that we could all agree on. I believe the man that will bring unity and will restore these foundational principles for all Americans is Donald Trump. That is something that all of us can look forward to, not just conservatives. So again, I encourage you, if you're someone who doesn't agree with that, if you're one of those never Trumpers, I just encourage you to approach his second presidency. First of all, remember, he's already been president for 4 years. So all those terrible things that you're told are going to happen, things we heard from people like Oprah, who said, if Donald Trump wins, you will never be able to cast a ballot again. Just total fear-mongering, hyperbolic things. Keep in mind, he's already been president for 4 years. And I implore you to approach his second presidency with an open mind, with just the notion that you want what's best for this country. We want the person in the White House who will do what is best for this country. Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you again next week. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.